Independent Communications Authority of South Africa has written to licensees in an effort to ensure that they make some communication services available to all South Africans. Basically, this means that certain services would be made accessible free of charge as the country fights the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us now via Skype is ICASA's acting chairperson, Dr. Kebetswe Modimweng, to discuss this further. Good to have you, Doc. Thanks so much for being our guest here on the program.
Greetings and greetings to the viewers.
So let's just clarify this. This hasn't been initiated. This is a request that subscription broadcasting services licensees open both audio and television bouquets. Talk to us a little bit more about this. What are you pretty much so saying? You're saying that consumers that do not subscribe to their services will get it for free. Give us a bit more detail.
Yes. So in light of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, as the regulator, we are aware of the fact that it is business unusual. This means we even need to look at ways of adjusting our regulatory frameworks to enable our licensees to give the end users, the consumers, in the broadcasting space, in the telecommunication space, and in the postal arena, a better experience given the constraints that the pandemic brings. Now, we wrote to licensees. We've received a number of responses at this point where some in the broadcasting space have opened, their channels a bit more wider and broader in the interest of transmitting news to the broader public, regardless of whether they are in the paid subscription space or not. In as far as it relates to the telcos, we are talking to the mobile operators. Given the surge, the uptake in broadband utilization as everyone is working from home, schooling from home, to see if we cannot have increased speeds over this period, we cannot have more reduced or specifically tailored packages from a data pricing point of view, just to cover this period of the pandemic. So we are really working around the clock, exploring all possible ways and interventions. And of course, working very closely with the ministry responsible, because in a time of crisis, we need to ensure that all our efforts are properly coordinated.
In terms of the request, obviously, as I emphasize in this interview, this is a request rather than a requirement. What if anything, or those companies don't comply? What do you foresee will happen?
Well, we believe our licensees are responsible corporate citizens. That's the departure point. They understand the pandemic that has been the disaster declared by the president. They see what is happening globally. It's part of moral suasion. Indeed, we don't have the right, the powers to compel anyone, but surely the public will be aware, of during a time of crisis, even when the regulator was willing to open doors and relax some regulatory constraints, they will know that company A, company B was just not willing to play ball. As I've said, it's business unusual, and we are all tailoring our normal way of doing business. And the expectation is that our licensees in this space should also follow suit.
Now, in terms of, and this is a big thing to take into consideration, if people don't normally subscribe, wouldn't there possibly be technical problems for people at home and who don't have things like decoders and so on? I mean, these are things that need to be taken into consideration.
It's a fair point indeed. So we've asked our licensees what technical limitations do they have. So in the letters that we said, well, how can we as the regulator help? Is it a question of some, spectrum arrangements in the interim? Is it so they will have different needs, and we've asked them, and they've done so, just to communicate. As company A, we would like to help, but our constraint is this or that. So we are looking at all submissions, and we will speedily, in consultation, of course, with government, because there's a specific task team, a command team established. We we'll make sure that at the right time, urgently, we communicate the outcomes.
Just, I suppose, maybe an important question. How urgent is this? You know, in light of everything that's going on and the amount of things that are needed by people. I mean, we're talking food stuff. We're talking just the basics of hygiene, sanitary, water, these kind of things. Are people really worrying about having access to DSTV at a point like this? I mean, is that really at the top of the agenda?
Yes, I think globally, there's been studies conducted, been reading online, that there's been about a 30% uptake of broadband utilization over the past few weeks globally, simply because of this pandemic. Even at home, people are watching. We are all glued onto our screens. We would like to hear the president's announcement today. Luckily, of course, we have free-to-air channels, which are very much helpful to our large consumer base. So the utilization of data is at its peak. Schools are now developing apps to enable remote learning during these unprecedented times. And all of these would require the right, enabling technologies and technological platforms to happen. And that is why ICASA is at the forefront of really trying to engage with all interested stakeholders who happen to be our licensees to ensure that we help where possible.
I finally need to ask this question as well. Data. This is perhaps the most important thing at a time like this. Making data accessible to all, especially in light of the increased number of people that are working at home, that are doing everything now via data and at home. What is going to happen there?
Yes, I think we as you would recall, over the past few weeks, there's been announcements of reductions in the prices of data. The last one was on Friday by MTN. 2 weeks ago, it was Vodacom. That was the Competition Commission process. The ICASA process is also underway. We work together with them. And with regards to the pandemic-specific intervention, we are even asking operators, if we were to give you some spectrum here and there or relax some spectrum sharing agreements and so forth, what can you bring to the table? So the cost of data, even particularly during this pandemic, is part of what we are looking at. So we're looking at speeds, we're looking at the cost, we're looking at wider coverage and so forth.
We leave it there. Thanks so much for the update. We'll stay in touch. Dr. Kiebetswe Modimeng, who is talking to us on behalf of as the acting chairperson at ICASA, explaining the broadcast requests and demands made on providers of both public and private companies. This has been done in the best interest of the public, as they say, and this, of course, is for information and education regarding COVID-19 and that big question regarding data, speed and access to all.